Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper, an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up, and today I have for you a double Z fold card. This is a card that the supply list is a little longer than what I typically show. However, it's nothing complicated, and this card has a big wow factor with this double Z. I'm going to switch. This shows you a little bit better how that double Z works. So anyway, this is our technique. It's great for any occasion. I'll show you some samples at the end of the video, but let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you will need is a piece of cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 11, and we're just going to do a little basic scoring. So bring on over your score tool. And I'm going to hold this here for a minute if you want to take a screenshot or jot down a note. So 4 1/4 by 11, so half a sheet of cardstock long ways. And we are going to score this 2 times. One at 2 3/4 and one at 5 1/2. And then you can set that to the side. And then the other piece we need for the base of our card is 3 1/2 inches wide by 9 3/4 inches long, and we're going to score it at the same measurements, 2 3/4 and 5 1/2. That always strikes me as a little funny, but it works. So 2 3/4 again, and 5 1/2. And these 2 pieces of cardstock are Blackberry Bliss. I am featuring the Sweet Ice Cream stamp set and the matching designer series paper that we have. So that's why I went with the Blackberry Bliss. Now we're going to start with some designer series paper for decoration. And we're going to start with our larger panel first. So that slimmer panel you can set to the side for a minute. And I'm going to turn this way. Hopefully you can see. We're going to need a piece of designer series paper that is 5 1/4 by 4. That's going to go on the largest panel here on the bottom. And then you will need 2 pieces of designer series paper that measure 2 1/2 by 4. And these are going to go on the smaller panels, like so. Now you can use 3 pieces that are all the same print. You can mix and match. I'll show you some samples later on to give you some different ideas. And we are simply going to attach these with some Stamp and Seal. This is what I call our standard adhesive. We also have Stamp and Seal Plus. It's just a little bit stronger and better for 3D projects. I'm going to switch to that when I assemble the card. But for now, just attaching these panels, a little bit of Stamp and Seal Plus will do the trick. You could also use liquid glue for this part. It just takes a little bit longer to set. And if you have directional paper, make sure you're keeping an eye on the direction as you're gluing it. Now while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and fold my Z. You can use a bone folder or just use your fingers, up to you. And now I'm going to set this to the side while I work on the smaller piece. So again, I'll flip it this way. And my paper's got a little out of order. Here we go. You will need, this is what I'm calling print B. 1 panel that's 3 1/4 by 4. That again is going to go on our largest panel here. And I'm going to have to watch my stripes because I want to make sure they're going the same direction. And then I need 2 pieces that are 2 1/2 by 3 1/4. And so they're going to go on like so. And as I said, you can mix and match. You could use all different prints if you wanted. I wanted to keep it a little less overwhelming as I was teaching you how to make this. The big key is to make sure you're putting your adhesive on the correct side of the paper. And I'll show you a little happy accident earlier where I did not follow my own advice. All right, so the second panel here, and then one more. And then we will go ahead with some more assembly on the rest of the card. So there we go. Again, give it a nice little press, and I'm going to go ahead and fold my Z on this portion as well, and set that to the side. Now I'm going to do a little bit of stamping. So my stamp set tonight is photopolymer, so I'm going to bring over my Stampin' Pierce mat. It's a thick piece of foam. It just gives my stamp a little extra cushion since there's not one built in. And if you don't have this at home, a thinner piece of foam, you can see how nice and thick this is, which is very handy to have, but you could use a thinner piece of foam. You could even use a catalog underneath, just something to give you a little extra give. All right, so my sentiment piece for the inside of the card measures 2 1/4 by 3. And I'm going to stamp in Blackberry Bliss ink the happy birthday from the sweet ice cream set. I can just squeak it on there. And then I'm going to move to the outside. And this one I have to remember to stamp vertically. I'm calling this layer C. We'll revisit this in a minute. This is 2 1/2 by 3 1/4. And I'm going to stamp Treat Yourself in Blackberry ink. Blackberry Bliss ink. I have to say that slowly. We have some tongue twisters in Stampin' Up! Land with our alliteration. Okay, and I'm going to revisit this in a minute and decorate it. But back to assembly for the card. I think we're ready to go ahead and start gluing things together. The first thing I'm going to do, just to make my life a little easier, I just realized I folded my Z the wrong way, so I'm going to fix that. My sentiment piece is going to go on the smallest, one of the smallest panels, the bottom panel of the smaller piece. I'm not good at describing things. It's terrible. So we've got the smaller piece, large panel, bottom small. So a little more Stampin' Seal. And this is going to go right here. This will help me make sure I'm putting the card together correctly since I know where my sentiment should go. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and assemble the card. And the key to remember here is you're attaching large to small when you're gluing the card together. If you were to glue both large panels together, the folding would not work. You need to reverse one of them. And here's where my Stampin' Seal comes in, because I want this to not pull apart, so I need something a little stronger. And I'm going to flip it sideways so you can see a little better. So I have it lined up with my large to small panels, and what I'm going to do first is flip over the top, and I'm going to use a little more adhesive than I normally would. I try not to be a tape hog. I don't succeed most of the time. But I'm going to go around the edges and one down the middle to make sure this isn't going to pull off my card. I got a little overzealous, so I'm just going to tuck that in. So your sentiment panel, you want towards the bottom or end of your large panel on the bottom piece. You can give it a border on the short edges, but you want it fairly close to the bottom. You don't want to put it towards the inside of the card, or else it just won't fold right. So I'm going to line that up and give it a good press. Now there's 2 ways you can attach the other end. The first way is to flip the whole thing over here, put some glue here, and then just lay it back shut. However, I did this and it worked, but it was just a little bit off. So I found the other way to do this is more of a guarantee to make things perfect, if that makes sense. So I'm going to fold this one over, go back to my Stampin' Seal, and I'm just going to put a couple strips of the Stampin' Seal Plus, no more than 3, because if I were to do more than 3, I'm going to fold this end in and then fold the whole thing and just press it down. And if I were to go a little crazy with the glue, I'd have glue where I didn't want it. So by keeping just a few strips of the adhesive here, the card still functions the way I want it to. So hopefully you're following along well with me here. All right, now back to that other piece that I said was layer C. And what I did was I went from the bottom up with my little labels. So hopefully I won't confuse you terribly. Layer A, which is fresh freesia, 2 3/4 by 3 1/2. Layer B, which is that blackberry bliss again, 2 5/8 by 3 3/8. And then layer C, which you saw me stamp, 2 1/2 by 3 1/4. And we're just going to layer these together. Now there is less of a border on these, just so you know. Typically I like a good healthy border on my pieces. It's just what I tend to be drawn to. So this one is a little bit thinner, just so you're aware. And then I think I can go ahead and layer this one on too, and then I will finish decorating it. So here's that piece you saw me stamp the message on, my sentiment. I'm going to accent it with a strip of designer series paper. So this one is 2 1/2 inches wide to fill the space here by just 1 inch tall. It was a scrap I had laying around. I just felt there was too much white space here on the front of the card without adding a little something. And boy, is my adhesive being persnickety tonight. It's beautifully sticky. You can see it's sticking all over to my fingers, just not behaving itself. All right, so I'm going to add this strip of paper here. Obviously, you can decorate the front of the card however you like. Now, I have pre-punched and stamped an ice cream cone from the Sweet Ice Cream set. So I'm going to pop some dimensionals on the back here. I'm going to use large and small, just because the tip of the ice cream cone sort of demands a smaller dimensional, or mini dimensionals, and then I call them the little ears on the ice cream cone. Isn't this cute? If you stamp it like this, it's a teddy bear. Multi-purpose set. All right. So peel the backing off the dimensionals, and I'm just going to add my ice cream cone here to the front, like so. Perky little ice cream cone. Now, I'm going to, let's see. I highly recommend, if you are going to glue this piece on flat, do it before you add anything with dimension to it, because it's just a little bit tricky trying to work with an uneven piece. But I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of this to add a little height to my card. And so I don't have to worry about that, but just a little tip for you. And don't put it upside down. So I always double check to make sure it's going the right way, because if I don't, I do something silly. So there we go. And just one more final accent. I have some cute little sequins. I am going to add a little bit of color to my card and fill in some more of this white space. And these are just a fun little accent to my card. And so there we go. There is my double Z fold card, all ready to go. And what I did for the envelope was I took a piece of the designer series paper and added it to my envelope flap, just to give my envelope a little pizzazz. So I have a couple of samples for you to show you some other ideas. Here is another card I made. This one is with some retired designer series paper, but a friend of mine, her daughter's turning 20, so I made her a card. Lots of fun here. Then this one, this was my happy accident. I was putting this card together while I was talking to my husband, and I made a mistake. I meant to glue the paper blue, blue, blue. And I realized after I stuck these two down that I'd put the glue on the wrong side. But I was not about to throw this beautiful designer series paper away. So I said, you know what, we're rolling with it anyway. So what I did was when I glued the paper on the top, I did the same thing on purpose. Blue and then the prints. And so when I close it, it is blue on blue here at the bottom, but it actually works out and it's a lovely card. So happy accidents sometimes do happen. And then you are not tied into this vertical orientation of the card. You can turn it sideways. The measurements are the same. Just make sure when you stamp that you're stamping in the correct direction. I make mistakes like that all the time. But this is a Christmas card, and instead of using designer series paper, I took the same measurements and I ran a piece of basic white cardstock through an embossing folder. This is our Evergreen 3D embossing folder. And then I used one piece of designer series paper on the inside. So this gave me a simple yet elegant Christmas card. And with that horizontal orientation. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this double Z fold card. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and be a regular subscriber here on my YouTube channel. I so appreciate you being here. If you do not have a demonstrator that you are currently working with and would like to see the catalog in person or check it out online, you can find me at thefaithfulstamper.stampinup.net, and you can also pop on over to Facebook where you'll find me as The Faithful Stamper. I do live videos 2 times a week there, and then I post here on the YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the card. Happy crafting.